Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world. More particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, to our brethren in Georgia, and Fiji Island, in Mexico, Spain, in Africa, to the United Kingdom, and also to our brethren in Australia, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 3 on the subject. Number 4. Episode number 4. So this is our episode number 4 on the subject. The Assyrian Confederacy. And I would like to begin on 2TG 41 on page 21. So let's read the statement. It says, "2TG 41, pages 20 and page 21. Let us now hear what the Lord would have us do, to stand, the stand He would have His people take. Isaiah 8 verse 11 and 12. For the Lord spake thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, Say ye not a confederacy to all of them to whom this people shall say, a confederacy, neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. The fear which the people fear is not to be our fear, neither are their plans to be our plans. Our duty is found in verse 13. Sanctify the Lord of hosts Himself, and let Him be your fear, and let Him be your dread. To sanctify the Lord is to be all for Him, to have no one else in His stead, to put your entire trust in Him, not making flesh your arm. For He alone is able to see you through. And though you should be the only one in all the world to take such a stand, He will not fail you. If such is your case, you will then become heaven's greatest hero. Verse 14, and He shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense, to both the houses of Israel. For a gin and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Then it says, this truth, you note, will now, just as has any divinely revealed truth at any time in the past, become a rock of offense and a snare to many. Yes, as Christ Himself became such to the Jews. Because rather than taking their stand firmly for divine truth, they are becoming as hostile against it as were the Jews in Christ's day. Since the prophecy continues through the next chapter, we shall read Isaiah 9, verse 20 and 21. And he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm. Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh. We know when we talk about Manasseh and we talk about Ephraim, both of them are pointing to the 10 tribes. And that is why the shepherd's rod plainly told us that God will be, or this truth will be a rock of offense and a snare to many. And the Bible is very plain. For a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel. Plainly indicating that there are two classes indicated here as the 10 tribes. Now I would like to read first, I think, answerer and also track number 8. In track number 8, on page 11 and 12, and also answerer number 2, page 73. I would like to read. Track number 8, pages 11 and page 12. The terms Israel Ephraim, Joseph. Going back for a moment to the historical approach to our subject, we recall that after Solomon's death, the Israelite nation, the 12 tribes, was divided into two separate kingdoms. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 11 and 12, and chapter 12, verse 19 and 27. The 10-tribe kingdom occupying the northern portion of the promised land was called Israel, also Ephraim, and occasionally the house of Joseph. Israel because of its majority of tribes. Ephraim, Isaiah 11 verse 13, because its kings came from Ephraim. And Joseph, Ezekiel 37 verse 16, because he was the father of Ephraim. But the two-tribe kingdom occupying the northern portion was called Judah, because its kings were of the tribe of Judah, and therefore its descendants are called Jews. The term Israel, accordingly, often applies only to the 10 tribes. So when henceforth in these pages, the reader comes upon the terms Judah, Israel, Ephraim, and Joseph, he will understand precisely who they are designating, and will thus, as we proceed, better understand of God's plan for the ingathering of the 12 tribes of Israel and for reuniting them in one great kingdom. Here in answerer number 2, page 73, it says, why 3 titles to the once divided kingdom? Will you please explain the difference in the terms Judah, Ephraim, and Israel? Answer. So, reading answerer number 2, page 73 and page 74. So it says, in its original and strictest denotation, the term Israel designated the children of Israel from the days of Jacob, their father, to the end of the reign of King Solomon. It will be remembered, however, that after Solomon's death, the kingdom was rent in twain. 1 Kings 11, verse 11 and 12, and 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 19, 20, 21. The one division composed of the 2 tribes occupied the southern portion of the promised land, while the other division composed of the 10 tribes occupied the northern portion. The former took the title Judah because the tribe of Judah ruled over it. The latter took the title Israel because it was comprised of the majority of the tribes. To this 10-tribe kingdom, therefore the term Israel applies when used in its secondary acceptation, excluding the 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin. The term Ephraim in the collective sense also designates the 10 tribes or the northern kingdom. Then the quotation is Isaiah 7 verse 1 and 2. because the tribe of Ephraim ruled over it. Thus, the eponyms Israel, when used exclusively of the 10 tribes, and Ephraim are applicable to the northern division and the eponym Judah to the southern division of God's ancient people. Answerer number 2, 73 and 74. Now, our reading is plainly telling us that the term Judah is applied only to the 2-tribe kingdom who occupied the southern portion, and that is Judah and Benjamin. But the term Ephraim, Israel, and Joseph is referred to the 10 tribes occupying the northern portion of the Promised Land after the death of Solomon. But notice here in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 20 and 21, it is concerning Manasseh and Ephraim, by which the shepherd's rod connect these two verses to Isaiah 8, verse 14. Now, let us read Isaiah 8, verse 14. And it says here, "And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling and for a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel." Houses, plural form. But what houses? Of Israel. And the answer is found on Isaiah 9, verse 20 and verse 21. Now let us read. "And he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm." We know that this verse is figurative, and in this reading there are two arms mentioned here: the right hand and the left hand. So the right hand here is pointing to Manasseh, and the left hand is pointing to Ephraim. So Manasseh and Ephraim, and also Ephraim, Manasseh. Or in other words, in the first reading, Manasseh is the right hand, and then Ephraim is the left hand. And then, on the next reading, brothers and sisters, it was reversed. Ephraim, then Manasseh. So let us read again the statement. 2TG 41, page 21. And he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry. And he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm. So, this group of people, they were eating spiritual food that cometh the same with them. Both of them are flesh. And then it says, Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh, and they together shall be against Judah. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. So, the statement, houses of Israel, in this study, we can clearly see that there are two groups of people represented by the 10 tribes. And both of them are against Judah. To have a clearer understanding, I would like to relate the historical event. After Solomon died. So I would like to read Prophets and Kings, page 335. Prophets and Kings, page 335. So it says here, it is concerning the time of Hezekiah. And in the prophetic prayer offered at the dedication of the temple, whose services Hezekiah and his associates were now restoring. So they repeated the prayer that Solomon offered. When King Hezekiah, together with his associates, are now restoring the sanctuary services that had been closed by his father, King Ahaz. I would like to read the reading in Prophets and Kings. Prophets and Kings, page 330. It says, Prophets and Kings 330. As the apostate king neared the end of his reign, that is King Ahaz. So I would like to read, it says, as the apostate king neared the end of his reign, he caused the doors of the temple to be closed. The sacred services were interrupted. No longer will the candlesticks keep burning before the altar. No longer were offerings made for the sins of the people. No longer did sweet incense ascend on high at the time of the morning and the evening sacrifice. But in the days of Hezekiah restored it. Now let us go to the next paragraph. It says, these promises meet abundant fulfillment during the Reformation under Hezekiah. Still reading Prophets and Kings 335. The good beginning made at the time of the purification of the temple was followed by a broader movement in which Israel as well as Judah participated. In his zeal to make the temple services a real blessing to the people, Hezekiah determined to revive the ancient custom of gathering the Israelites together for the celebration of the Passover feast. Now, who are they, the Israel mentioned here? Because the 10 tribes were already conquered by Assyria in the days of King Ahaz. Now, I would like to read Prophets and Kings. Let me see. In the days of Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. Page 91. It says, the breach created by the rash speech of Rehoboam proved irreparable. Prophets and Kings, page 91. Thenceforth, the 12 tribes of Israel were divided. The tribes of Judah and Benjamin composing the lower or southern kingdom of Judah under the rulership of Rehoboam. While the 10 northern tribes form and maintain a separate government known as the Kingdom of Israel, with Jeroboam as their ruler. Now, I will no longer read all the entire reading, but I would like to read the time when Rehoboam repented of his sin and then obeyed the word of the Lord. So let's read here in page 92 and page 93 in Prophets and Kings. It says, so when the prophet Shemaiah came to Rehoboam, I would like to read, beginning from page 91. But the word of God came unto Shemaiah, the man of God, saying, Speak unto Rehoboam. Page 91 in the last portion. But the word of God came unto Shemaiah, the man of God, saying, Speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Judah, and unto all the house of Judah and Benjamin, and to the remnant of the people, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Ye shall not go up, nor fight against your brethren, the children of Israel. Return every man to his house, for this thing is from me. They hearkened therefore to the word of the Lord, and returned to depart according to the word of the Lord. For 3 years, Rehoboam tried to profit by his sad experience at the beginning of his reign. And in this effort, he was prospered. He built cities for defense in Judah and fortified the strongholds and put captains in them and store of victual and of oil and wine. He was careful to make these fortified cities exceeding strong. 2 Chronicles chapter 11 verse 5, 11 and 12. But the secret of Judah's prosperity during the first years of Rehoboam's reign lay not in these measures. It was the recognition of God as the supreme ruler that placed the tribes of Judah and Benjamin on vantage ground. To their number were added many God-fearing men from the northern tribes. Out of all the tribes of Israel, the record reads, such as set their hearts to seek the Lord God of Israel came to Jerusalem to sacrifice unto the Lord God of their fathers. So they strengthened the kingdom of Judah and made Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, strong 3 years. For 3 years, they walked in the way of David and Solomon. Verses 16 and 17. So, I would like to make a little illustration. So, when Solomon died in 971 BC, the kingdom was divided. 971 BC. So, we have the two tribes occupying the southern portion and the 10 tribes. The two tribes is in Jerusalem, but the 10 tribes is in Mount Gerizim. And when Rehoboam, the first king of Israel, of Judah rather, the first king of Judah, the son of Solomon, during the divided state, he want to take the 10 tribes by force to submit to his rulership. But it was not accepted, and even the man that he used, Adoram, it was killed. And the prophet Shemaiah give message to the king, and since the king hearkened to the voice of the Lord, because of his faithfulness for 3 years, according to the Bible, as stated in Prophets and Kings, many, and that many, in each tribe, 10 tribes, there are representatives of each 10 tribes that join to the house of Judah. Although the majority remain in Mount Gerizim, but there are 10 tribes that join to the house of Judah. And that's what we are studying. And it was represented by Manasseh, and the one who remained is Ephraim. Now let us go back. To our subject. It is very important to have a clear historical background in the past. So, to get the full beam of light on the particular object in view, as recorded on the Shepherd's Rod publication. Now let us go back again on 2TG 41, page 20 and 21. So, in that period of time, from the divided kingdom, some of the constituent of the 10 tribes join the 2 tribes. Because of the faithfulness of King Rehoboam. But in the days of King Ahaz, the 2 tribes also divided. Some of the Judites, some of the Benjamites or Benjaminites followed King Ahaz to submit themselves to the king of Assyria. Now let us go back again to the reading. But the remnant of the 2 tribes, Benjamin and Judah, the faithful ones, they did not join to King Ahaz, and they remained in Jerusalem. And the voice of inspiration, or the Bible called it, the house of David. And they were led by King Hezekiah. Now let's read again, Prophets and Kings. So, it says here, so let's read Prophets and Kings on page 330. It says, "But in Judah there dwelt some who maintained their allegiance to Jehovah, steadfastly refusing to be led into idolatry. It was to this that Isaiah and Micah and their associates looked in hope as they surveyed the ruin wrought during the last years of Ahaz. Their sanctuary was closed, but the faithful ones were assured, God is with us. Sanctify the Lord of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread, and he shall be for a sanctuary." Isaiah 8 verse 10, verse 13 and verse 14. So, historically, both the 10 tribes as well as the 2 tribes were divided. When Solomon died, and then his son King Rehoboam began to reign, first because of the counsel of that young man, the co-associates of King Rehoboam, that give advice to take the 10 tribes by force. The man by which he trusted, that good man, his life was sacrificed. Adoram. But when God sent prophet Shemaiah to King Rehoboam, and then Rehoboam hearkened to the voice of the Lord and became faithful, many of the 10 tribes, meaning each of that tribe, 10 tribes in all, many of them returned to Jerusalem and joined the house of Judah. Therefore, there are 10 tribes that joined the house of Judah, and they are the 10 tribes mentioned in the reign of King Hezekiah in Prophets and Kings 300 35. But the two tribes also were divided in the reign of King Ahaz. And majority of them followed King Ahaz to pay tribute, to submit themselves to the king of Assyria. But there are remnant, the faithful ones, who remain in Jerusalem and they were called in Isaiah chapter 7 as the house of David, together with the 10 tribes. Now, let's go back again to reading in 2TG 41, page 20 and 21. And he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm. Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh. So, to repeat again, this is the answer of Isaiah 8 verse 14 saying, to both the houses of Israel. The word both is used to indicate two objects. So it is pointing to the 10 tribes. Ephraim, the 10 tribes that remain in Mount Gerizim under the rulership of King Jeroboam. But Manasseh is pointing to the 10 tribes that returned to Jerusalem in the reign of King Rehoboam. And they are the 10 tribes or Israel mentioned in Prophets and Kings 335. So let us read. The good beginning made at the time of the purification of the temple was followed by a broader movement in which Israel as well as Judah participated. It could no longer be pointing to the Israel who remain in the northern portion in Mount Gerizim, because all of them were conquered by Assyria in 721 BC. Before the reign of King Hezekiah. Now, let me read to you here in 1 SR. "115. The kingdom of the 12 tribes of Israel was divided into two divisions in their early years, namely Israel and Judah. But at the time Ezekiel had this vision, there was only one division, for the 10 tribes had been conquered and carried away in 721 BC, 126 years before this prophecy was made according to the same chronology." 1 SR page 115. So the 10 tribes were those who are occupying in the northern portion. According to 2 Kings chapter 17 and chapter 18, they were conquered by Assyria, all of them, in 721 BC. So the 10 tribes mentioned in Prophets and Kings 335, they are those who did not continue to remain in the northern kingdom in Mount Gerizim as their capital temple, but returned to Jerusalem on the first 3 years of the reign of King Rehoboam. And this description in Isaiah 9 verse 20 and 21, in reality, brothers and sisters, is even more directly applied in our days, in the last generation of men. So let us continue reading. So Isaiah 9 verse 20 and 21. "And he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry, and he shall eat on the left hand, and they shall not be satisfied. They shall eat every man the flesh of his own arm. Manasseh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Manasseh. And they together shall be against Judah. So, Manasseh, which pointing to the 10 tribes, Ephraim, which pointing to the 10 tribes, both of them shall be against Judah. And this predicted event is directly applied in the days in which we are living in. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Now let us read the commentary given by the Shepherd's Rod. Such will be the results of rejecting God and His counsel. All who take their stand with the multitude against God's people will find themselves in the same predicament as the Midianites found themselves in Gideon's time. As the light breaks out, they will kill one another, but the faithful will be delivered. This, however, is not all. Now, we need to study closely this prophecy, brothers and sisters. B.T. Hotep attached the occurrence in the days of Gideon when the Midianite kill each other. Now, does this illustration in the antitype, is it literal or is it figurative? Thus, without their knowledge, they were fighting against each other. Because that's what happens to the Midianite. They will not kill each other if they knew only. But the fact is that they did not know. Because there is a great confusion among them. And according to the shepherd's rod, it is the result of rejecting God and His counsel. The consequence of rejecting God and His counsel. So, what is the illustration here? First, the example given is King Rehoboam. When King Rehoboam hearkened to the voice of the Lord, not to fight against his own brethren, the result was good. But in this reading, brothers and sisters, whoever these people represented by Manasseh, whoever these people represented by Ephraim, and all the people under the leadership of Manasseh, under the leadership of Ephraim, they were eating their own flesh. Or in other words, they were receiving messages which did not come from God. Private interpretations, uninspired messages. And both of them, in reality, were fighting against Judah. And the result is that the time came that they themselves were fighting against each other. Now let us continue reading in Isaiah 8 verse 15. And many among them shall stumble and fall, and be broken, and be snared, and be taken. Isaiah 8 verse 15. It says, and many among them. Among what? Of course, pointing to among Manasseh, among Ephraim. I would like to, before reading this statement, symbolic code. 13 symbolic code. Number 3 and 4. On pages 8 and page 9. Let us read. God's people are not only commanded not to participate in the Confederacy, but they are to oppose it. To all them, to whom these people shall say, a confederacy. In Bible commentary, let me read to you. And also to selected messages. Book 2. Let me see. So let's read Bible commentary. For BC 1142. For BC 1142. What is a confederacy? 4 BC 1142. What is a confederacy? The question has been asked, what do you mean by a confederacy? Who have formed confederacies? You know what a confederacy is? A union of men in a work that does not bear the stamp of pure, straightforward, unswerving integrity. In 2SM 371, it says here, um, 2SM 371. It is under the chapter 47, preparing for the final crisis. In 367, it says, preparing for the final crisis. Now let's read 2SM 371. And this study is very timely because it will be fulfilled and materialize the outcome and the result of this presidential election of the United States of America. Now let us read. Not to unite with the world. There is to be no compromise with those who make void the law of God. Who make void the law of God. Now, let us read again the statement in 4SP. Let's read. 4SP 300 98. The coming conflict. The coming conflict. The greatest and most favored nation upon the earth is the United States. A gracious providence has shielded this country and poured upon her the choices of heaven's blessings. Here the persecuted and oppressed have found refuge. Here the Christian faith in its purity has been taught. These people had been the recipients of great light and unrivaled mercies. But these gifts had been repaid by ingratitude and forgetfulness of God. The Infinite One keeps a reckoning with the nations, and their guilt is proportion to the light rejected. A fearful record now stands in the register of heaven against our land. That is pointing to the United States of America. But the crime which shall fill up the measure of her iniquity is that of making void the law of God. So that is pointing to the United States of America. Brothers and sisters, they make void the law of God. In page 403, it says, court of justice are corrupt. Rulers are actuated by desire for gain and love of sensual pleasure. Intemperance has beclouded the faculties of many, so that Satan has almost complete control of them. Juries are perverted, bribed, deluded. Drunkenness and revelry, passion, envy, dishonesty of every sort are presented among those who administer the laws. Justice standeth afar off, for truth is fallen in the street, and equity cannot enter. So let us go back again to the reading in 2SM 371. It says, to SM page 371, there is to be no compromise with those who make void the law of God. It is not safe to rely upon them as counselors. Our testimony is not to be less decided now than formerly. Our real position is not to be cloaked in order to please the world's great men. They may desire us to unite with them and accept their plans, and may make propositions in regard to our course of action which may give the enemy an advantage over us. Say ye not a confederacy to all them to whom these people shall say a confederacy. Isaiah 8 verse 12. So both the writings of Sister White and the writings of B.T. Hotep is in perfect harmony that God's people are not only commanded not to participate with this confederacy, but also to oppose it. And then it says, while we should not seek for controversy and should not needlessly offend, we must present the truth clearly and decidedly and stand firm to what God has taught us in His Word. You are not to look to the world in order to learn what you shall write and publish or what you shall speak. So, this statement is an indication that the laws of the land will soon be against us. We will be restricted of the things that we will write and publish and speak. But we should not be afraid. We should not fear. And the only fear that we would have is the fear of the Lord. Here in Volume 5, Testimonies for the Church, Ezekiel 236. It says, the world is against us. That is pointing to God's people. The world is against us. The popular churches are against us. The laws of the land will soon be against us. Volume 5, page 236. There would be gradual suppression of such absolute freedom. Because the statement says, you are not to look to the world in order to learn what you shall write and publish or what you shall speak. Let all your words and works testify. We have not followed cunningly devised fables. 2 Peter 1 verse 16. We have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto ye do will that ye take heed, as unto a light that shineth in a dark place. So here, brothers and sisters, a divine warning had been given unto us. Now let us go back to 13 symbolic code. 3 and 4 on page 8 and page 9. It says, God's people are not only commanded not to participate in the Confederacy, but they are to oppose it. But how we will oppose? By presenting the truth. Because in Desire of Ages, it says, the best way to dispel error is to present the truth. I think Desire of Ages 400, somewhere in 490. The best way to deal with error is to present the truth. Or in other words, if you have a message given by God, you need no longer waste your time, brothers and sisters, mentioning those false doctrines and attacking other movements. Just present the truth. Because the Word of God, the present truth, it is like a lion. You don't need to defend it. Just release the lion and he will defend of itself. Now here in 13 symbolic code, 3 and 4 page 8, it says, neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. It is upon the root of some fear that the Confederacy is formed. But that which constitutes their fear is not to constitute the fear of God's people. So, the root cause why these people participated of this Confederacy because of fear. And what is that fear? Remember, if we'll be studying Assyrian Confederacy, the focal point is the United States of America, because Assyria and Nineveh are one people. In 1 TG, 24 page 11, it says, 1 TG 24:11, quoting Nahum verse 1, Nahum chapter 1 verse 1, and Nahum chapter 3 verse 18. The burden of Nineveh, the book of the vision of Nahum the Elkoshite. Thy shepherds slumber, O king of Assyria. Thy nobles shall dwell in the dust. Thy people is scattered upon the mountains, and no man gathereth them. Then it says, plainly, Assyria, with their capital city, Nineveh, are the one people. And it is pointing to the United States of America, the prophetic nation, as stated in to symbolic code number 1, page 8. So, remember, brethren, that this confederacy will commence at the time when the Christian nations are united. Symbolic Code 3 and 4, page 10. Moreover, it is in the time when the Christian nations are united that the woman Babylon will sit on the 7 heads. Revelation 17 verse 9. Depicting also the union of the churches under Babylon. So what is their fear? By which the Christian nations are united. Because of their fear. That Christianity, or the statement in track number 12, it says, to preserve Christianity. Now, I would like to read track number 12, page 53. Current events that may fulfill prophecy. Because the bone of contention among the angry nations of today, now let us apply the word today, 2020. Let us be realistic. Because the bone of contention among the angry nations of today is the world's markets. And because the churches are threatened by the totalitarian governments, and thus urged to press together in order to preserve Christianity. The fact is thereby evidence that the time is nigh for the arrival of the predicted worldwide religious, political, commercial empire, the supposed remedy for the world's ills. We need to elaborate more this paragraph. What is the statement? They were obliged to press together. Why? To preserve Christianity. So, the fear is that Christianity is being threatened by such totalitarian governments. And it is even more pointing to communism. Now, I would like to read again the statement given by the shepherd's rod. So let's read timely greetings. 2TG 41 on page 17. The world sees communism as a hydra-headed monster behind a bush, and the nations are already, so to speak, smiting their knees one against the other while they look at it. And this year 2020, without any doubts, it is even more directly pointing to China. Because China, among the communism, China is the fastest growing country as far as commercialism are thus concerned. China is rising to the top. And the world sees it as a hydra-headed monster behind a bush. And the nations are already, so to speak, smiting their knees. They were afraid. If China will dominate the whole world, and the bone of contention is the world's markets. According to track number 12, page 53. And that is why the Sharper's Rod says, in track number 12, page 76, no, it cannot be traceable with grammatical law, but only by logic of events. And no one could deny the absolute fact that at this time, communism China is growing very fast. And that is the reason that they implement many sanctions to China. Because in all industries, China is now competing the whole world. And then it says, 2TG 41, page 17, the world sees communism as a hydra-headed monster behind a bush, and the nations are already, so to speak, smiting their knees one against the other while they look at it. Their safety, however, does not depend on fear and armament, nor on the man we elect for president, but on God, on Him who holds the earth in space and who still rules the affairs of mankind. From the dawn of history till today, the great nations that have fallen fell when they were best armed and most independent of God. This should be a great lesson to all. But who realizes it? 2TG 41 on page 17. And that is the main issue of the presidential election in the United States of America. It is concerning China, and it is also concerning Iran, Russia, as well as Turkey. Brothers and sisters, now let's continue reading in 13 Symbolic Code 3 and 4. page 8. It says, God alone is to be revered. God alone is to be feared and dreaded. If there were no possibility for fear at the fulfillment of this chapter, there would be no need for this reassurance and instruction. It is indicative of the fact that God's people will see themselves absolutely helpless, and they will appear helpless to all others. Then they will receive deliverance from God, and all will behold it. If God's people are approaching the time when they must either confederate or sacrifice their lives, they must be developing that faith which will cause them to believe that in those days shall men seek death and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. So the Assyrian Confederacy is closely connected to the subject, the 12 figurative months. Revelation 9, verse 5 and verse 6, which is directly pointing to the 5 symbolical months. So there is no possibility that you could be able to comprehend clearly this subject, Assyrian Confederacy, unless you have a clear conception concerning the 12 figurative months. Now let us continue. Verse 14. Isaiah 8 verse 14. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense, to both the houses of Israel, for a gin and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Then it says, a sanctuary is a place of refuge. Besides being a place of refuge to God's faithful ones. So what is a sanctuary? It is a place of refuge to God's faithful ones. And it is closely connected to such admonition given by the shepherd's rod into SR 164. It says, but when our high priest shall begin the atonement for the living, to SR 164, but when our high priest shall begin the atonement for the living, there must be a message of present truth, sounding of the trumpet, urging everyone to lay hold on the lamp of God, which is Jesus Christ, by which only can he in figure come to the sanctuary, confess his sin, and secure his life. So the sanctuary doctrine is very important because there must be a sanctuary by which that is the only place of refuge. Sanctuary represents the church. Now, let us read tract number 3, pages 47 and page 48. Inescapably, therefore, the Lord's coming to His temple, Malachi 3, verse 1 to 3. He's coming with all His angels, Matthew 25. And He's coming enthroned above the living creatures, Ezekiel chapter 1. All three representing the same event as has been shown take place at the beginning of the judgment of the living, the time in which the judicial activities of the heavenly sanctuary extend to the earthly sanctuary, the church. What is the investigative judgment or the beginning of the investigative judgment of the living? That is the commencement of the sealing of the 144,000. Now, I would like to read to us our page 171. The sealing of the 144,000 is at the closing of the judgment of the dead and at the beginning of the judgment of the living. As a matter of fact, it was predicted beforehand that there are 144,000 who will be profited with this rousing call, and they will come to the sanctuary and then secure their lives. It says here in SR 164, therefore it is evident that in the purification or separation of the tares from the wheat in the church of God, there shall be 144,000 who had confessed their sins and are thus made white and clean by the precious blood of Christ, for they are the first fruits. And that is the reason why Jesus Christ especially mentioned the book of Daniel in Matthew 24 verse 15. The abomination that stand in the holy place. The holy place represents the church. And the abomination is that they were bowing into that throne, not knowing that it is the devil which is sitting in the temple of God. The sanctuary that had been trodden underfoot by the exceeding great horn. And it is called by the voice of inspiration as demon worship. Now, I would like to read to you here in early writings. Early writings. Let me see. On page here the prophet says that page 56, I turned to look at the company who were still bowed before the throne. They did not know that Jesus had left it. Brethren, it is pointing to the sanctuary by which Jesus Christ left it. It says, I turned to look at the company who were still bowed before the throne. They did not know that Jesus had left it. So they have no knowledge that that sanctuary is completely abandoned by Jesus Christ. It says, Satan appeared to be by the throne, trying to carry on the work of God. I saw them look up to the throne and pray, Father, give us thy spirit. So they were ignorantly bowing to that throne, not knowing that such sanctuary is completely abandoned by Jesus Christ. Satan would then breathe upon them an unholy influence. In it there was light and much power, but no sweet love, joy, and peace. Satan's object was to keep them deceived and to draw back and deceive God's children. Early Writings, page 56. So, brethren, the sanctuary doctrine is very important because we need to ascertain clearly what sanctuary or what movement we are to enlist in if we want to make sure of salvation. That statement is attached to the book of Nahum, right? Or to the subject, the Assyrian Confederacy. So here in tract number 14, page 22, here in prophetic utterance is not only a promise to purify the church. Of course, the church to be purified is the church recognized by Jesus Christ as His. Here in prophetic utterance is not only a promise to purify the church when modern Assyria is being crushed, but also a suggestive statement as to what constitutes meat in due season per month today, and as to what movement they are to enlist in if they would make sure of salvation. Tract 14, page 22. You want to make sure of salvation? Ascertain clearly what movement you are to enlist in. But according to tract number 3, page 47 and page 48, the only church that you need to join must be the sanctuary by which the judicial activities in the heavenly sanctuary was extended to that church. What does it mean? That must be the church by which they have the complete information, complete understanding concerning what is going on in the heavenly sanctuary. There must be only one movement by which God gave the complete information concerning the proceedings that occurred in the heavenly sanctuary. And that is the church is stated in tract number 3, page 47 and 48, represented by the sanctuary by which the judicial activities in the heavenly sanctuary is extended to that church. Meaning, the occurrences in the heavenly sanctuary, all the information was bestowed into that church. It was entrusted by God, given unto them. Now, I would like to read 13 Symbolic Code 3 and 4, page 9. It says, a sanctuary is a place of refuge. So that is very plain. The only place which is called the place of refuge is the sanctuary. What sanctuary? The sanctuary, the church recognized by Jesus Christ as His. And since there is only one sanctuary recorded in the past as the type, and that was the sanctuary that was built by Moses in the wilderness as God commanded him. Because when they entered the promised land, they erected a permanent one. First, they called it tabernacle. Then, later on, they called it temple. The temple of Solomon and the temple in the days of Zechariah, Haggai, and Zerubbabel. So we need to study closely the typological prophecy, brothers and sisters. Because even that verse that always quoted by many Davidians in Micah 7 verse 14 and 15, not knowing that that is a prophetic one, the perfect fulfillment of antitypical Israel going out of Egypt. Brothers and sisters, going out of Egypt. If you will read Micah 7 verse 14 and 15. So I would like to read 13 Symbolic Code 3 and 4 page 9. There are many prophecies that we need to study. Besides being a place of refuge to God's faithful ones, He is also to be a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, Judah and Israel. There are two Israel, there are two Judah, brothers and sisters, but only the faithful ones, by which this sanctuary unto them is a place of refuge. And we need to study closely the historical event, not to follow that examples of that two tribes who followed the leadership of King Ahaz and then submit themselves to Assyria, as well as the 10 tribes, as predicted in Isaiah 9 verse 20 and 21, Manasseh and Ephraim and Manasseh. But it points out to the unfaithful ones. So here, brothers and sisters, it says, and a gin and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was the ruling city of Judah. From this it is plain that through this confederacy, God is to be a gin and a snare to antitypical Judah. You see, brothers and sisters, not only to Israel, but as well as to antitypical Judah, this confederacy is to be a gin and snare to antitypical Judah, but to the unfaithful ones. And this is the last reading, and we'll continue on our next episode. Let us read track number 14. So let's read the statement. Page 18. immediately, we see that in the revealing light of this scripture, the one pronoun thee, who in both cases is set free in the time of Assyria's fall, proves to be the church Judah, liberated from Gentile Assyrian rule. Conclusively, therefore, Isaiah clarifies Nahum's prophecy as referring to the church liberation from the last day Assyrian yoke. The fact, though, that the church, as Nahum says, is not only to be relieved from affliction and freed from bondage, but it is also to be sentenced to death. Nahum 1 verse 14 creates a paradox. Inspiration, however, quickly clears it again through Isaiah. Speaking of the church, he declares, Isaiah 65 verse 15, and that will be our next goal to ascertain clearly. Who are they? The Judah which is sentenced to death. And who are they? The Judah which is destined for deliverance. So the shepherd's rod says, creates a paradox, because there is only one title given in the book of Nahum, and that is Judah. So if Judah will be delivered, why is it that there is a Judah to be sentenced to death? Creates a paradox. But the absolute answer is found in Isaiah 65 verse 15. And we will continue that subject on our next episode, and hoping that the good Lord will bless us and would help us, brothers and sisters. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. Have a beautiful and wonderful evening.